Hey guys, what's up? Big Shanty here, and today I want to talk to you all about chiastic structure. So hit that intro, and let's go.
Shut up and sit down.
Hey, welcome back, guys. So like I said, today I want to talk to you about something called chiastic structure or ring composition. If you're in the house of people that like to give stuff fancy new names when they don't need them, but whatever. I want to talk about chiastic structure and why that's important for your writing and how you can use it, or maybe give you an example of how it's been used in modern literature, so that you can have maybe a good visual or a good representation of what it looks like. So before we get to that, though, I want to talk about what chiastic structuring or ring composition is, if you haven't heard of it. So if you're new to the writing game, or maybe you're not really studying creative writing or anything like that, you just you happen to be a good storyteller, there's lots of tips and tricks and lots of formal processes you can use to really make your writing shine and really connect with your audiences. And how you structure your storytelling is very important for that. So chiastic structuring or ring composition is a great way to do this. And basically what it is the way I like to describe it is almost like a fun house mirror. If you've ever been to a circus or carnival or state fair or whatever, any place that has these kind of things. If you've not experienced one of these, basically what it is, a funhouse mirror is a mirror that distorts the image. So you're still seeing yourself in the mirror, but it's one of those that like either makes you like 20 feet tall and skinny and wavy, or makes you like 3 feet tall and super short and fat, but like you're the same. Okay, you're the same person. You don't change people in a mirror. You're the same person. It just changes how you look. Okay, that's essentially what chiastic structuring or ring composition is, and it works best, in my mind, or my humble opinion, when you're talking about a large series of novels, or a longer story. Okay, if you try to cram a chiastic structure into one novel or into a short story, it can be a little jarring, and a lot of times your readers might figure out what you're doing. It'll still work, all right, but it tends to work better when you have a longer story to tell. And the example I'm going to give you in a minute is a pretty long story. So essentially what it is you have different components, and so we're going to give these components letters for the time being. So in a chiastic structure, you have letter A. There's going to be an A right here. Somehow I'll do some movie magic and there'll be an A here. So you've got a plot point or action point or story point A, okay? Then you've got story point B, all right? Now, this is where having a longer story comes in handy. Next, you're going to have plot point, it's going to be a C. I'm not going to trick you out. So you got plot point C, okay? Now, this is where that funhouse mirror comes into play. When you've got plot point or story beat or whatever you want to call it, D, all right, it's not going to be D, all right? It's not going to be something completely new. In fact, it's going to be B apostrophe. Oh, we got a new little character there, so it's B apostrophe. And then you want to have plot point A apostrophe. So you've got all of these lined up here: A, B, C, B apostrophe, D apostrophe. Or I'm sorry, A apostrophe. Wow, that was good. Good job. Way to write the script, guys. Jesus. All right. Anyways, so you've got A, B, C, B apostrophe, A apostrophe. And the point here is A is its own story. Okay, completely new story, completely new plot, completely new characters, new action, new climax, everything. B has got the same characters, some new characters, continues a plot thread, there's new plot points, new action points, all right, all that happens. C, because it's in the middle, can be kind of a standalone element. All right, the events that happen in C either set off the climax of the story, if you will. They make everything kind of come into place. It's a turning point for your characters, but it's really a standalone. This is where the chiastic or ring component comes in. B apostrophe is going to share a lot of the same characteristics as B. Not exactly the same, though. So a lot of the events might occur in the same fashion, right? But the action might be different. Or the action occurs in the same fashion, but it involves different characters, all right? Or, something is slightly different, but it's still familiar. And then the same thing over here with A. I'm mixing up hands. You've got A apostrophe and A proper, right? Yep, A proper, okay? Very similar stories. Now, you might say, well, that's kind of a lazy way to write because you've written A, B, C, and then you're just going to copy and paste B apostrophe and A apostrophe, and you're not wrong, okay? You are using a lot of the same elements. But the reason it's important is not because it's a easy way to write. It's really not an easy way to write because you got to think of a new, intriguing way to tell the same action. But it's important because you're building an emotional connection with your audience. You're pulling on those emotional, or you're pulling on the heartstrings. You're pulling on their emotions. You're pulling on the man, I really cannot talk today. You're pulling on the tiebacks to story events that happened earlier on. Okay, so the events that happened in A and B are going to be very similar to the events that happen in, B prime, or not B prime, but B secondary and A secondary, or B apostrophe and A apostrophe, right? And there's a lot of really great examples of this. I'm going to dive into one of the more modern ones that has done, in my opinion, I might get some flack for this, but in my opinion, a fantastic job of really showcasing the emotional weight of chiastic structuring or ring composition. But I want to divulge a little bit and talk about why calling back or tying back to something you've already written is an incredibly important and emotionally weighty narrative tool. So I'm going to talk about sales for a minute. So those of you guys that are writers that may probably loathe the idea of being a salesperson, I'm sorry, but you're a salesperson. You're selling your story to your audience. And I don't mean in terms of you're physically selling your books or your novels or short stories or whatever to your audience. I mean you are continually having to sell your audience on your ideas, page to page, chapter to chapter, word to word. Okay, you are a salesperson. Now, in sales, there is a particular set of tried and proven practices. And if you ever, if you've ever worked in sales or go to a company and take on a job as a salesman or woman, whatever, you'll see that companies invest millions, it's insane amounts of money to train their sales force on their particular sales tactics. And it's because they work, okay? Now, there's a trick called callbacks or tiebacks, okay, that you use towards the end of a sale to help close that sale, okay? You've got the customer on the hook. They've come in for something they want. They're not entirely sure they want to spend all that money on it. They're not, 100% invested in it, right? And you've got to get them there. You've got to push them over the finish line. Callbacks or tiebacks are a great way to do this because what's going on is you've built rapport with a customer, okay? If you're using a callback or tieback, the only way it's going to work is if you've built that rapport with the customer. You've had a long conversation with the customer. You've uncovered things about their personality, their personal life, their work life. You know if they have kids. You know how long their commute is. You know what their business operates like if they own a business. You know what they do for a living if they don't own a business. You know a lot of details about them that you've uncovered in this conversation. And you're going to, at the end of this sales process, okay, as you're winding down, as you're trying to close them in the back half, okay, because that's important to chiastic structure, you're in the back half, okay, you are calling back to things that happened at the front end of the conversation, okay? So you're calling back, you're using information that you already know about your customer, okay? You're using information that's been established here, right, at the beginning of the conversation. You're using that information here at the end of the conversation to emotionally bring your customer to a conclusion. Sound familiar? Mm-hmm. You're a salesperson. Yeah, you are. Admit it. You may hate it, but you're a salesperson. So what you're going to do in this scenario is you're going to call back to something that they've said earlier, all right, that has importance to them. So whether it's, how they get their kid to school or daycare in the morning, or whether it's, how important their job is for their livelihood, or, how much they love their partner, or, what their favorite hobby is, whatever it is, something that's important to them. You're going to tie something you sell, whether it's the product you're currently trying to sell them or something else, okay, you're going to tie that product, that end goal, that final piece, okay, that last page, that last chapter, that last product, whatever it is, right, you're going to tie that to something that was discussed early on. And that is a tried and true tactic to close the sale with somebody, okay? It's the exact same situation when it comes to writing. You spent all this time at the forefront, getting your audience invested in your characters, invested in your story, invested in your plot points. You know, if you're writing a large series in the example I gave, you spent 3 books up to this point, right, getting them invested. Now, you got to close the deal and you got to pay off. And how do you pay off? You pay off by calling back to events, back to characters, back to actions, back to sequences that already happened, but doing it in a way that's slightly different, okay? Now, there's a fantastic example of this in modern literature that I'm going to dive into now and give you some, actual, like, condensed examples of this if you're having trouble visualizing what it is. So I've got them pulled up here on my computer. I'm going to drop them into the video on top of my face so you get a break from looking at me for a second and just give you these examples. And so if you guys are fans of Harry Potter, which hopefully you are because freaking always, right? Harry Potter is a phenomenal example of chiastic structure or ring composition in play. And so just as an example, I'm going to go through a couple examples here. I'm not going to read everything off here because, you can find this yourself. You can Google Harry Potter chiastic or Harry Potter ring composition. You can find this image. But J.K. Rowling did a fantastic job of building symmetry between book 1 and book 7, book 2 and book 6, book 3 and book 5, and then book 4 as that middle piece is kind of its standalone thing. Nothing that happens in book 4 really happens in any of the other books. It's its own separate entity almost. You could almost take Goblet of Fire out of the series, and the series would still sustain itself on books 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, and 7, right? So book 4, right, is that inner piece. It's that, it is the tipping point, the point of no return, where the story has stopped growing, all right, and now it's going to start expanding and recalling on things that have already happened. So just as an example here, in The Philosopher's or Sorcerer's Stone, book 1, we're just going to say book 1, okay? The book opens up with Harry and Hagrid arriving to Privet Drive on a motorbike, okay? Book 7 opens with Harry and Hagrid leaving Privet Drive on a motorbike. So you have A over here, which is the first, and then you have, God, wow, that's really small. You've got A apostrophe, A secondary, whatever you want to call it, over here. Same characters, same basic action, right? But you have arriving and departing is the difference. And that is an emotional thing, right? Arriving somewhere that has significant story weight that you don't know yet, right? You're not connected to that location yet, right? They're arriving there. But then, after 7 books, man, you're connected to Privet Drive, right? And they're leaving it for the last time, likely, right? That's an emotional thing. That's why this pays off. It's very emotional, leaving this place, okay? Then you've got another one in books 1 and book 7. Harry sees his parents in the Mirror of Erised, okay, in book 1. Book 2, book 7, after using the Resurrection Stone, Harry sees his parents. So you have same characters, different location, same action, right? So just one thing changed there. And it's a very emotional thing. It's emotional up front because you're finding out, oh man, that's sad. Harry just wants to have his family. Everybody does, right? But then you have the ending point here, this very emotional impact of, man, your family's been with you the whole time, right? That's huge. Yeah, there's such emotional weight there. He's spent, his entire childhood wanting his family to be with him. They were there with him the whole time. Good job. All right. Next one, we've got, this is a good one. Very small element here, the Deluminator. Dumbledore uses the Deluminator in book 1. Comes back in book 7, and Ron uses it. So in this case, it's a passing of the torch of a plot point. It is different characters, different action, same item, right? So you're changing it a little more here, but it's basically, passing of the torch is a great way to build out in a chiastic structure. All right, so let's move on to book 2 and book 6. So book 2, we're going to start it off with the Dursleys' house is visited by Dobby, okay? first time being introduced to this very significant story character. All right, and book 6, the Dursleys' house is visited by a creature. So same location, same action, different characters. Chiastic structure. All right, let's move on. We'll pick on another one in book 2 and book 6. All right, so this is a good one. This is a good one that shows character growth, but it's still, in a sense, chiastic structure. So you've got Malfoy in book 2 he's an innocent kid. He's not actually an evil character or anything like that, but because of his upbringing and whatever, he wants to help the bad guy. All right. In book 6, you've got this growth that Malfoy is feeling bad about the environment he's been raised in, right? And he's now no longer innocent of something. He's guilty of something. He's an accomplice to this plan to kill Dumbledore, right? He is a primary accomplice, but he's guilty about it. He's had character growth, and he wants out. So the chiastic structure here is that these are an actual mirror image of each other. They are exact opposites of each other. He's not guilty, but wants to be guilty. Here, he's guilty, doesn't want to be guilty. So it's a perfect mirror image. Then to me, that's one of the best. Malfoy's arc in the books is one of the best examples of how you can use chiastic structure to build, because at the end of it, you feel bad for Malfoy. Like, he's this little freaking punk in the beginning that you hate, and then by the end of it, you're like, oh man, that's sad. What a sad journey, right? There's a lot of emotional weight there, which is great. All right, so let's move on to book 3 and book 5. Again, remember, we're skipping book 4 because it's in the middle, right? It's the one that has no real impact other than that is the tipping point to get to the Funhouse Mirrors. So we're going to look at book 3 here, Prisoner of Azkaban. Fudge puts the Dementors at Hogwarts, right? So you have this character who's kind of this bumbling idiot, sort of, right? That is putting evil in a place of safety. Move on to book 5. Fudge puts Umbridge at Hogwarts. Bumbling idiot puts a character of evil in a place of safety. So same place, same action element, if you will, different characters. Chiastic structure. All right, let's do another one. All right, so we've got Harry flies to save Sirius on Hippogriff. Very light imagery there, very happy, very positive. Harry flies to save Sirius on a Thestral. Same exact thing, but the chiastic structure here, you have something that is beautiful, magical, something that is this like dreamy thing in the Hippogriff, right? And then you have this representation of death and sadness, the Thestral. So the difference here is the actual emotional impact of the scenes. You've got you've got happiness and livelihood here, death and sadness here, right? So very strong emotional impacts there. Another one, you've got it's sort of the same thing. Very happy thing, Sirius escapes prison. Well, I say happy thing. It's a scary thing in the book when it happens, but it's ultimately for a good thing. Sirius escapes prison. Sorry, I'm way off screen here. Sirius escapes prison. And then you've got, in book 6, a very bad thing, Bellatrix escapes prison, right? So you've changed, you've same scenarios, but you've got good versus bad, right? So that is a fantastic modern example of chiastic structuring and how it could really pull on your emotional heartstrings of seeing these characters, go through this growing phase here, and then reaching a tipping point, and then going through sort of a falling phase here, where everything is essentially the same, right? It's just a Funhouse mirror version of itself. That's chiastic structuring. And you can read all about this. Honest to God, you just Google chiastic structure, ring composition, and you could practically get a degree in it, right? But it's a fantastic way to structure your stories if you're having trouble with that storytelling element of your narrative, okay? And like I said, it works best in a long format series. If you were to do this in a short story or a novel, your readers will probably catch on to what's going on, whereas with a longer series, it's sort of, it's harder to realize, oh, shit, that happened in book 1. It's something that happened in book 7, happened in a book that you read a few years ago. It connects with you subconsciously and emotionally, but you don't necessarily realize it. If it happens on page 1 of a book and then again on page 100 of a book, you probably remember it. So it's less impactful. Not to say you can't do it, and there's examples of it being done well, right? But it's much harder to pull off. So there's a quick little intro to what chiastic structuring or ring composition is. I hope you enjoyed it. You know, if you didn't know what it is and you got value out of this and you want to try using it, let me know what you think of it. Let me know how you're going to use it in your storytelling, you know, because I want to hear from you guys. So, you know, if you found this useful, let me know. And lastly, as always, smash that subscribe button, hit that like button, and give that little bell a tickle. I'd really appreciate it. Y'all have a great one.